Ladies and gentlemen, it is Benchley night. The first Benchley night in quite a while, I think. But I've been on the road, so it all becomes a bit of a blur. But anyway, it is lovely to be here. I hope you all are doing well out there. I see that at least one person is watching. Terry Hudson, hi Terry Hudson. You're painting the varnish. It came out great. Corduroy was complimenting me about it today. You know what Corduroy's compliments sound like? They sound a lot like her complaints. She's a very fricative cat. She goes, ha, 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 like that. And I can interpret it either as being compliments or suggestions as to how I could be a bit better. Anyway, Tony Ulick, hi there. Tony, hi Martha, hi John Wilhelm, hi everybody, hi everybody, hi everybody. Interesting times, ladies and gentlemen, interesting times. I was in Havana for the midterms, and Sarah Ovenden was sending me, well, the group I was with, we decided that if the news was awful, we didn't want to know about it. And for where I am on the political spectrum, the news was not so bad. And all my compatriots on this little trip were of the same persuasion as me. And so Sarah would send us occasional bulletins, and I would report it to our people, and there was great rejoicing in Havana. You know, it could have been a lot worse. Uncle Drifty, I think we underestimate Uncle Drifty. I really can't stand listening to him, but I do think we underestimate him. Anyway, a couple of things. One, a dear friend of mine in the painting world just posted a blog post about how worried and sad he is about the direction of the country. He is a evangelical right winger, and I was thinking about it, and I realized this hypocrisy in myself, or not hypocrisy, just a human tendency in myself. When my side wins, my feeling is reconciliation. We must all come together. We must all come together as one, because basically we're all the same. When my side loses, I am like, we are on the way to perdition. Hell is around the corner. That's the way he feels this week. He is deeply troubled at the direction the country is going in because his crowd didn't win this last midterm. I don't have a moral lesson about that. I just have an observation that if I was in his shoes, I would be feeling exactly the same way. And because my side did pretty well during the midterms, I am somewhat happier than I and feeling like things are not so bad. Take it or leave it. There we go. The other thing I want to do is just momentarily touch on the tragedy in Colorado Springs last night. Even Lauren Boebert, not my favorite human being, said it was an awful, awful thing. So we leave it at that. All right, enough pontificating by me. You don't need to hear me blathering on about whatever is troubling humankind. You need 15 minutes of great American humorists. And we're going to have that. And we have a few people to thank. Our liberal snowplowing do-gooder beneficiary tonight is World Central Kitchen, because they do great work. And no one can really argue with giving people who need them sandwiches. So thank you, World Central Kitchen. And thank you, all of you out there in internet land, who together we raised about $215 for World Central Kitchen, which again, it's not going to change the world, but it's better than a kick in the pants. And we have to thank The unidentified unglet in the can is ready. We have to thank Ms. Martha Rowley. Oh, what a beautiful unglet that is. The other unglet, the previous unglet, I don't know where, oh, here it is. The previous unglet sounds kind of strangled these days. Yeah, this is a gorgeous unglet. Thank you, my very, very tall cousin and his excellent wife, Elise. Thank you, thank you. I know it was all Elise. It wasn't you, very, very tall cousin, but I cannot mention anything adjacent to you without mentioning my very, very tall cousin. Ms. Martha Rowley, Phyllis and William Rosser. Well, that was neat. Ms. Terry Hudson. Oh, Terry Hudson, you're going to be so, I hope, you're going to be so pleased with the painting. That's better. That first one was kind of pathetic. Carol Fulkerson out there giving life to untold generations of sheep. Much better. Holy Lou Conant Rees. Melissa Berger. John Wilhelm. Sarah Ovenden. Catherine Fisher. Ann Brooks. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where John Fetterman, halting of speech though he may be, is at least the senator-elect from Pennsylvania as opposed to Mammoth Oz. Out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, towering above the clouds, my very, very, very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, and his wonderful wife, Elise. Thank you all so much. All right, here's a Robert Benchley I've never read before. Nope, I haven't. I don't think. Maybe I read it. It all blurs together after a while, ladies and gentlemen. It all blurs together. A Vanishing Art. Somehow, I have a feeling that no matter how far out of work I may be, I shall never be able to make my living by putting little ships into glass bottles. There must be some people who do, for one is constantly seeing bottled ships in store windows. I never could quite figure out just what kind of store it was that would feature a ship in a bottle as a window display. But as there's usually an 18th century highboy and a pair of bellows alongside the bottle, it can't be one of the more essential emporia. I guess that you'd just call it a ship in a bottle store. However, the fact that putting little ships into bottles is not a useful trade is not the reason why I would not go in for it. Look at what I'm doing now. No, the reason for my eschewing that form of gainful activity is simply that I haven't the slightest idea how it is done. And I doubt if I ever could learn. I've often tried to figure it out while standing on a busy day and when in my own trade in front of a ship in a bottle store. Is it possible that the tiny ship is made and rigged and set up and then the glass is blown around it? Blowing glass in itself is enough. Blowing glass in itself is enough of a mystery to me without having to complicate it by having to blow it around a ship. I really rather doubt that that is the way it is done. The only other solution is that the bottle is already blown and the ship is made inside the bottle. This too sounds pretty implausible. Some sort of man or woman or very dexterous child has got to make the ship, and you cannot tell me that anyone, no matter how small, can get right inside one of those bottles and build a ship. I may get a funny, vacant look in my eyes once in a while, and I may not be very good at adding up my check stubs, but I am no fool. Nobody makes those ships from the inside out. This leaves what? Nothing. Either the ship is made first or the bottle is made first. The hole in the neck of the bottle is not large enough to allow for a full rigged ship being let down through it. You can tell that at a glance. There's nothing left except for the ponderers to go crazy. I have tried that too. I once tracked a ship and a bottle putter to his workshop and tried to find out how he worked it. I was spending the summer on the Atlantic coast, sometimes here, sometimes there, mostly a compromise between those two. And in an old Cape Cod antique shop, I saw one of those accursed things. I went into the shop and I asked the old lady, don't let her know I called her an old lady, please, who had made it. She, with that old New England cordiality, which is with that old New England cordiality, which has made that section of the country the flourishing center of enterprise that it is now, left the room without answering me. But I found out from a customer, a summer resident from Wisconsin, that a gentleman who lived in the White House down by the steamship dock had wrought this wonder. So I set out in search of him. His name was Captain Whipple, and he was 167 years old, although he lied about his age and claimed to be only 160. Captain, I said, from now on I shall spell that title Captain, but you must remember that what I really said was Captain. And sidebar, Charles, now we'll keep saying Captain. Captain, how in, naming a certain flower, do you put those little ships in those bottles? A fair question, and deserving of a fair answer. The captain whittled a piece from his callous thumb and spat reflectively. Well, he said, from now on I shall spell the words as they should be spelled without reference to the Cape Cod pronunciation. But I, Charles, will continue to murder the Cape Cod pronunciation. Well, it's a long story. Going back to my hotel and getting a chair, I drew it up beside the old gentleman, all attention. Shoot, kid, I said. The seafaring man took the stub of a pencil and began figuring on the back the original of a letter from Thomas Jefferson to Martha Custis. Little scandal which has never come to light, but which, while it was lasted, was a peach. Then he looked up at me with his little watery blue eyes aglint. You're from New York, ain't you? He asked. I blushed prettily. That'll cost you $500 to know, he said. And at that, I am cheating myself. I thought it over. $500 to learn how to put a ship in a bottle, when the chances were that I would never be called upon to put anything into a bottle, much less a ship. And even if at some time or other I should be faced with that necessity, I could always plead a headache or the fact that I had no ship with me at the moment. So I took an old Revolutionary cradle, which was standing nearby, and I placed and I placed it firmly over the old gentleman's head until nothing was visible of him above the shoulders. On this, I piled several pewter candlesticks, a spinning wheel, and a portrait of General Howe. This done, I left the ancient mariner and the artisan with his secret. The main trouble, however, with taking up ship in a bottle pudding as a trade, aside from the difficulty of figuring out how it is done, would seem to me to be that it does not offer much opportunity for advancement to a man. You can't get ahead very fast. Suppose you do learn how to do it and you serve an apprenticeship to some expert ship in a bottle putter for 5 years. You are then promoted to head of the bottling department. What is there left? You're as far as you can go unless you start in for yourself. And I should imagine the consumer demand for ships in bottles would soon be exhausted in any one community, with very little turnover. One is reminded, and let us be quite frank about it, when I say one is reminded, I mean I am reminded, of the business troubles of the man who polished the commemorative brass cannon in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I've always heard that it was Ypsilanti, Michigan, but I'm willing to retract it if that is not true. It seems that the residents of Ypsilanti, Michigan, shortly after the Civil War, decided that some sort of monument or denkmal should be placed in a public square to remind future generations of Michigan's part in the Great Struggle. So a large brass commemorative cannon was placed on the common, if there is a common in Ypsilanti, and a veteran of the war was engaged at a nominal salary to keep this cannon in good condition. He was to polish it twice a week and see that small boys did not hide in it. Aside from this, his time was his own. This business routine went on for 25 years. The veteran was faithful at his task of polishing the commemorative brass cannon, and its splendor and shining surface were the admiration of everyone who visited Ypsilanti, Michigan. And during those 25 years, let me start that sentence again. Was the admiration of everyone who visited Ypsilanti, Michigan during those 25 years, to say nothing of the natives. The commemorative brass cannon of Ypsilanti, Michigan became a byword throughout the state for expressing how shiny a commemorative brass cannon could be made. One evening, during the veteran's 26th year of service, he came home to supper at his usual hour, 4:30. But his wife noticed that he was more depressed than was his wont. He hardly touched his food, and he sat in moody contemplation of the backs of his polished, stained hands. His wife was worried. "What is it, Joe?" she asked. "What's the matter?" "Oh, nothing, my dear," said her husband, and turned in a brave attempt to finish his cutlet. "Come, come," said his companion of 25 years of labor. He had married immediately upon getting the job of polishing the commemorative brass cannon. "I know that something is wrong. You are depressed." The gray-haired man put down his knife and he looked his wife in the eye. "You're right," he said. And he took her hand in his. "I am depressed. Things haven't been going very well down at the cannon recently." "You don't mean that you're fired, Joe?" she said fearfully. No, never fear about that," was his reply. "They couldn't fire me. I know too much. They would be afraid I might make trouble, but I am discouraged about my work. I don't seem to be getting ahead. For 25 years, I've been polishing that cannon and putting everything that I had into making it bright and shiny. I have done my job well. No one can deny that. But recently, I've gotten to thinking, what's it leading to? Where am I getting? Where's the future in polishing commemorative brass cannons? And the old man broke down and cried. His wife was silent for a moment. Then she stroked his head and said, I know, Joe. I have worried a little myself, and I've figured it out this way. In the last 25 years, we have saved a little money. I put aside $1 here and $1 there when you didn't know about it. We have quite a tidy little nest egg. And here's my suggestion. Let's take that money, buy a cannon, and go into business. And go into business for ourselves. Such, I think, would be the problem which would confront every middle-aged man who finds himself at the age of 55, a putter in bottles of little ships. What is the future? What is the future of such work? Even if he goes into business for himself, like the polisher of the commemorative brass cannon of Ypsilanti, Michigan, how can he meet competition? Of course, he can vary the type of ships he puts into bottles. The old square-rigged merchantman having gone out of date, he could put in models of destroyers or warships of some sort. But with all this talk of naval reduction going on, dealing in battleships and destroyers is a pretty precarious business. England pleads that her navy has been more than an engine of war during the last 2 centuries. It has been a career for the finest of her young men. She naturally recoils from any proposition which would eliminate such patrician employment. But what about those unfortunates who find themselves with no models for bottle putting? These artisans must either stick to the old clipper ships, which their grandfathers put in bottles, or put in battleships, which may be in a few years against the law. Of course, they could begin putting in models of reapers and binders, or of printing presses, or any of the other 1,002 engines of peace. But that really wouldn't be right. It has got to be a ship if the old tradition is to be maintained. And so, to all young men who are going out into the world to make their living, I would say, think twice, young man, before you go in for putting little ships into bottles. That is, unless you're planning to spend a lot of your time in jail, where time does hang heavy. I suppose that I shall get a lot of indignant letters from the trade for issuing this advice. But it comes from the heart. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, thank you for joining us for Benchley Night. Hopefully I'll get back in trim in a week or two. It'll go a little bit smoother rather than me rereading so many portions of that one. But it was great to be here. Thank you all so much for supporting World Central Kitchen. You take good care. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.